Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Dr. Raquel Yiengst was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Upon graduation from high school, her parents sent her to continue her studies at the University of St. Mary's in Kansas, where she received a bachelor's degree in child development and family life. She returned to Puerto Rico, where she met and married a man from Reading, Pennsylvania, where she currently still resides. She also received a master's degree in guidance and counseling at Cookstown University and a doctorate degree in urban and bilingual education from Temple University. She worked for the Reading School District as Director of Bilingual Education until her retirement. While working there, she was appointed as a commissioner to the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and has been in this position and has held it for the last 44 years, I must say gracefully. She's the vice chair of the commission and the chair of the Educational Equity Committee. And in 2019, Dr. Raquel Yiengst received the prestigious PHRC Homer C. Floyd Award for her lifetime of work towards social justice. And I would like to turn it over now to our executive director, Chad Dion Lassiter, for some welcoming remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this virtual and beloved community space. We are humbled and honored to have one of my bosses and definitely a social justice partner and thought leader, and Dr. Yanks here for this virtual presentation. I wanted to open up with a quote by Winston Churchill that I believe is apropos for this moment. Winston Churchill said the following: all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, and hope. Dr. Yanks gives us hope. There's a lot of people at the PHRC who may say, well, we don't really know what commissioners do. Read our annual reports. Uh, Spend some time with some of the data that we sent out to you. Our commissioners are an essential part of the fabric of what we do here on the senior management level and just throughout the commission. And so just very honored and humbled to be here with a person who I have spent 7 years and 5 months with, praying, debating, but holding on to hope. Holding on to hope. She and Chairman Bolstein, as I reflect, are the primary reasons why I accepted this assignment as a man of faith. And so happy to be in this space. Thankful to you all who have availed yourselves to be in this space on this day. Happy Monday to all, even in the midst of Dr. Yang sending me an email that her beloved Eagles lost. We'll get the next one, Doc. We'll get the next one. We'll get the next one. But once again, welcome to everyone and looking forward to being present throughout.
Thank you, Executive Director Lassiter. And before we get started and I turn it over to Dr. Yangs, I'd just like to say for all of you in attendance, it's a fluid conversation with our commissioner. So if you have any questions at any point during the conversation, please feel free to just raise your hand. I have my wonderful outreach coordinator, Hector Torres Diaz, who will be monitoring the chat, as well as all of our members here who are joining us and our Director of Communications. So they'll be my extra set of eyes here to make sure that they monitor any hands that may go up during the discussion so that you can ask your question in real time and not have to wait until the end of the presentation to ask our dear Commissioner here anything that you'd like. So let's get started here. Tell us about your journey to America. How did that start? I know that you were born, raised in Puerto Rico, but what brought you to Kansas of all places?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for that nice introduction, Soleil. And thank you, Chad, for always being so generous and kind with all your um, introductions and all the things that you say about me, some of which I deserve and some which I might not deserve so much. However, I thank you, the Lord, first for being here with you today. I hope that I bring some comments to you that resonate with who I am and why I'm here and why I've been in the commission so long. And also that if there's any question during my presentation, I am used to doing these presentations a lot because I was an educational consultant and I travel, through the United States, uh, training teachers in bilingual education and English as a second language. So you can interrupt me anytime, believe me. I don't have a script. I always said if you invite me to do a presentation and I can do it without a paper in front of me, I will not do it because that means I don't know enough about the subject to be able to be speaking about it. So I don't have any notes. I don't have any paper. This is very randomly, very relaxed. Interrupt me anytime you want to. To your question, how did I get to Kansas? But before I can tell you how I get to Kansas, I have to tell you a little bit about my life in Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I had the best of both worlds. And when I mean the both of both worlds, I mean on my father's side, I had a very strict, wealthy Spanish family who came from Spain. On the other side, I have a middle class uh, mother who was born and raised in Puerto Rico and was Puerto Rican, which means her roots might have been white, uh, Indian, black, I don't know. But my mother was totally Puerto Rican, my father was totally from Spain. So those two families were like night and day. So when my father married my father was 24 years older than my mother. And when my father uh, married my mother, uh, I don't think that his family was thrilled about it because my grandparents were farm people. They owned a farm. But my mother was the kind of a woman that everybody loved because she was humble, uh, she was genuine, she was giving, and those are some of the values that she installed in me. So my family on my father's side got to just not love but adore my mother, and they just love her to death. So at any rate, part of my childhood I spent with my maternal grandparents, and they were the salt of the earth. They raised 13 children of the neighborhood that they live in. They had 7 children of their own. They grew sugar cane and tobacco. And my grandfather was a very tall, black hair, high cheekbones. I'm sure that he had some Indian in him. But my uh, great grandfather, who I remember as a child, was a little man, which I'm sure was totally Spanish, with the bluest eyes I have ever seen. I used to be scared to death of him because when he looked at me and I look at those blue eyes and that white hair, I used to be totally scared. So anyhow, I was brought up in those two areas, which I think was wonderful because that made me who I am today. My father, as an older man, when he had us, was very strict, and the girls were to be seen and not heard. The boys could do whatever, men can run loose, but the girls have to be ladies and stay in the home. And so my father decided, because in Puerto Rico, and I'll tell you something about our culture. In my time, what I'm talking to you about is in my time. I know things have changed tremendously, and Soleil probably, since she's much younger than me, can attest to that. But in my time, the man was the head of the household. The lady stayed in the house, and she just took care of everything that had to be done in the home. Uh, the decisions were all made by the husband. So we always decided, listen to what my father had to say. I would imagine that behind closed doors, my mother and father discussed things, but that was not privy to us. So when my father sent all of us to Catholic school because we were all born and raised Catholic. And when I graduated from high school in a Catholic high school in Puerto Rico, in Rio Piedras, which is my hometown, um, my father made a decision that he did not want me to attend the University of Puerto Rico. However, he wanted me to get an education because he always said, I want you to be prepared for whatever. I'm not always going to be here. You're not always going to have this lifestyle, and you need to know what you need to do with your life. So he got together with a senator from Puerto Rico who was a very good friend of his, and his daughter was attending St. Mary's University. And by the way, it's not Kansas, it's Leavenworth. I say that with tongue in cheek because my husband always said, "Oh, she went to the penitentiary." It's a standing joke with us. So it's in Leavenworth, Kansas, and that's where the penitentiary is. So they got together and decided that his daughter was going there, so that would be a good place for me to go. So my father came home and said, I found a place for Raquel to attend college. I've got everything ready, my suitcases, my clothing, everything that the school said I should bring, because they gave you a list of things to bring. They put me on an airplane. Now, you know that I am not a spring chicken, so what I'm talking to you about is many, many years ago. I took an airplane from Puerto Rico to Miami all by myself. I couldn't speak English. I did know some English vocabulary and English words, like can I sharpen my pencil or something like that. But I was not fluent in English. I could not put sentences together. And my grammar was horrendous because at the Catholic school that I went, a lot of the nuns were from Spain. At any rate, they put me on an airplane with my suitcase, some money, and a sign that says where I was going. Saying at Mary's University, Xavier, Kansas. In Miami, I had to wait for some time and then pick up another plane and go to St. Louis. In St. Louis, I had to wait another time and take an airplane to Kansas City. In Kansas City, I don't ask me how this happened because sometimes when I'm reflecting on my life, I pinch myself and say, was that really me? I took a bus that took me to St. Mary College. When I arrived at St. Mary College, St. Mary is in a hill, and there were some girls at the bottom of the road. They were waiting for me. They grabbed all my things, and we went to the school. I remember I got there about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was standing in a hallway, and everybody was going back and forth. And all of a sudden, somebody asked if the Puerto Rican girl arrived, and somebody said, "Oh, no, no, there she is." Now, mind you, I was a 116-pound little girl with long hair and probably uh, baby Jane shoes or whatever I was using at that time. And so nobody knew that I was because they were waiting for a black girl to arrive. So, oh well, it's from Puerto Rico, but she's white. So they were waiting. So that was that first shock. When I spoke to my friend that was already there, she said, "Oh, they did the same thing to me. Don't worry about it." So I was a non-English speaker. I was a freshman in college, and I had been valedictorian of my class. And there I am, not being able to do much as far as my education was concerned. My parents paid for some tutors, and I cried a lot. I called home. I said I want to come home, and my father said, "Fine. When do you want the ticket? But remember, you come home, you don't come back." And then I used to say, "Well, let me wait another week." And because all my friends were going to college here, and my father didn't raise a loser, so I kept staying. When Christmas time came, my parents said, "You're coming home for Christmas?" I said, "No, I'm not going home." And my father said, "Well, give me a good reason." And I said, "Because I'm still not where I want to be, and if I go home, I will not come again. So I want to finish the year, and in the summer, I go home." And my father said, "Well, I think that's a good decision. So do it." So I stayed during the holidays at the school with some of the girls from China and Hawaii and other countries, Japan, that were going to St. Mary. And we had a wonderful Christmas because the nuns were wonderful to us. My challenge at college was not only the language, but the cultural differences. I made a lot of mistakes because I was acting like a Puerto Rican uh, lady. And at St. Mary, it was the Anglo people. One of the things that I remember vividly is that in Puerto Rico, um, when you eat, you always have your hand, uh, both hands on the table. And in the United States, people put one hand down. Well, I didn't know that, so that was a correction that they made. And I can go on and on and on with the many cultural differences between Puerto Rican, Spanish people and the Anglo people. They're all many times misunderstood. For example, when somebody came to talk to me that was older than me or none or something, I would immediately put my head down. And they would say to me, "Why are you looking down? You need to look at me at the face. Are you hiding something?" Well, no. The biggest sign of respect that any child can give a grown up person in Puerto Rico is to look down when they speak to you. In the United States, if you look, don't look people in the eye, you're deceiving, you're saying a lie, whatever they think that you're saying. 4 years went by. Graduate, I learned to smoke, I learned to drink Coke, and I learned to play bridge. All of which I had to let go because those and college didn't go together. But I was able to learn English with an accent a lot worse than I have now. And by the way, you know that if you learn a second language after you are 17 years old, you never lose your accent because your tongue is used to going places that you cannot manipulate to put anyplace else. So be it. So went back to Puerto Rico with my degree. Um, my father said to me, "Well, I spent a lot of money sending you to college so that you can be a good wife. And so show me something that you learned." So I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, you go back in the kitchen and ask the cook to let you prepare something that you learned in Kansas." So I went back in the kitchen and I made a beautiful salad. I brought it back. I showed it to my father, and my father said, "What is that?" I said, "It's a vegetable salad." And he said, "That's what I spend all my money on? You making this grass?" So, you know, again, back to the cultures that I haven't been for 4 years. Um,
Right.
the other thing was my father would not allow me to work because the only reason that he sent me to college was that I would be prepared to be a good wife. One day, one of my uncles from my Spanish family came in and asked my father, "Well, what is Raquel doing now that she has her degree?" And my father said, "Yes, she's at home." And my uncle said, "Paco, what are you doing with that girl? Just let her go and get a job and let her experience life and so on." So I guess that resonated with my father, and I was able to uh, went on and get a job as a translator, believe it or not, at the naval base in Puerto Rico, believe it
Oh,
or not. And that's where I met my husband. At any rate, uh, I met my husband, who was from Reading. Uh, My parents were very disappointed. Nonetheless, they respected my choice. He won their hearts, and so we got married. I stayed in Puerto Rico. He came back. He was on a ship duty, so he came back and he stayed in Puerto Rico, and I was working for a company designing kitchens. So I was designing kitchens. He came back and said, "I'd like you uh, to meet my parents at Christmas time." So came back at Christmas to meet his parents, and guess what? Never went back. Never went back. Um, from Reading, I went to Norfolk. From Norfolk, I went to Charleston, and for Charleston, I came back to Reading. Ah, if you think Kansas was difficult, think over again when you get to Reading. They had a party to introduce me to their friends. I am standing with my husband. One of his friends come over and said, "Oh, I heard that you were in Puerto Rico. How many of those knife cutting Puerto Ricans did you bring back with you?" My husband said, "Oh, just one. Let me introduce you to my wife." Uh, so from then on, I realized that I was an oddball. I was different. I was the only Puerto Rican at that time in Reading that had a college degree. And people question me, "Oh, well, you know what? You are one of the ones that made it." One of the ones that made it. I thought I was made in Puerto Rico. So it was extremely difficult. I made it my business to educate the residents of Reading on Puerto Rican culture because at that time there were only 400 children and they were all Puerto Rican in the Reading School District. And they invited me to join this board and that board and this board. I was a token and that was fine with me. And I was invited to speak to almost every club in Reading, the Women's Club, the Rotary Club, the churches. And I did all that for only one reason. I wanted these ignorant people in my head, these ignorant people to at least learn something of what Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans are all about. During all those travels, I met the superintendent of the Reading School District. And he said to me, "Oh, you have a degree?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Well, we have 400 Puerto Rican children in the Reading School District, and these children, nobody knows what to do with them. We can communicate with them. We need you." But at that time, I had gotten a job with Penn State University as Berks County home economist, and I had a wonderful job, radio, 6 radio broadcast a week, one television broadcast a week, a newspaper column, and I had a beautiful job and working with the entire Berks County. And believe me, those people were so wonderful to me and they liked me and we had so much fun. But anyhow, uh, I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And I thought, boy, this guy really must need me. And I said, his name was Dr. Ralph Geigo. I said, "All right, Dr. Geigo, I'll come to work with you, but I'm not a teacher." He said, "No, no, no, no. We'll make a job for you." So they made a job for me. Guess what? My job was anything and everything that had to do with those 400 children, whether it was parent teacher, whether it was discipline, whether it was home visit, whether it was uh, letters, whatever, it didn't matter. And they put me in an office and you say, "You are a Puerto Rican expert." The first day on the job, the assistant superintendent took me to the special ed school, which was a school that only Reading had in the entire state, a special ed school. So he took me there, and on the way, he explained to me that these were children with physical and mental problems, that they were taken there. The school had a ramp, a very nice school. So when I got there, he took me room by room by room, and I looked at these Puerto Rican kids because I knew the ones that were Puerto Ricans, and I was looking for instruments or wheelchairs, but I didn't see that. So I said to them, I see a lot of Puerto Rican children here. Why are they here? "Oh, well, these children have been tested and they, mentally deficient. They're special ed." I said, "Well, uh, who who gave them the test?" "Oh, we have a psychologist here in the. Is he bilingual?" "No, no, no. The test and the test and the interview is all in English." And I was young, I was praising, and ignorant, and I guess I didn't realize I was talking to the assistant superintendent. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, Dr. Khan, if I would give you that test in Spanish, do you think you will pass it?" And he looked at me
Yes.
and he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "What, those children don't speak English. How can they pass the test? Let me look at the test." And I look at the test and the test results, and they are in the 25. They will not be able to find the school with the. Guess what? That's where my battle began. And I
That's where
said,
your advocacy for education began with,
began
because you saw that
because
injustice where they were placed in special education when indeed what they needed was the English
to
as a
learn
second
the language
language.
exactly. And
Beautiful.
so, this was, to me, it was such an injustice because I saw myself in the face of every one of those children. And I saw, for the grace of God, I came from a wealthy family. My father could give me whatever I needed, and I was able to succeed. How are these children? I knew for a fact where they came from. The lowest of the lowest Puerto Rican families, parents with maybe, if they're lucky, a third grade education or maybe no education. Excuse me. And I just, I just came home and I said to my husband, "This is incredible. Those children are sitting there vegetating." And and then also the cultural differences. I thought I've got to do something about this. The Lord put me here for a reason, and I've got to do whatever it takes. Yes,
And
Sue.
if I may, I think that it was such a beautiful move for the superintendent to see the need and see something in you that you could bring to the district to help those children. I want to just ask you a question as you continue to share your journey with us. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a Latina woman in a profession where not most Latina women are, and also in a district where you can count the number of Latino children within that school district? So, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you embarked on that particular
Well,
mission and time?
first of all, Soleil, the concept that people have about Puerto Ricans, based on the farm workers went to Puerto Rico and brought airplane full of workers to work in the farm because the people here would not do pick the tomatoes and apples and bananas or whatever. And so they saw me as one of those Puerto Ricans. They didn't see me for what I was. They saw me as one of those Puerto Ricans, and oh well, maybe she's one the one that made it. They didn't know me from Adam, that they had no idea who this Raquel Yiengst is. So that was number one. Number two, I had an accent, and probably a very heavy accent at that time because I was still struggling with becoming, more proficient. Um, and second, the other thing, a woman. There was not a Puerto Rican employed in the Reading School District, not one. So the challenge was the prejudice and the concept of what Puerto Ricans are like. Uh, Most people in Reading did not know that Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth of the United States. Most people do not know that we are American citizens by birth. Most people don't know that Puerto Rico belonged to Spain for 400 years, and during the Spanish American War, they had a peace treaty that the United States wanted desperately to own that island. Why? Not because they care about us, not at all, because we are the key to the Panama Canal, which is a very strategic point. And so they said to Spain, "Oh, give us that island," and the war is over. So Spain gave Puerto Rico to the United States. Immediately, they went to Puerto Rico and they started, building places. And, of course, you know that the name Puerto Rico means rich port. because there was a lot of gold in Puerto Rico. And they took all that gold, the Spaniards, and gave it to the Queen. One of my trips to Spain, I went to a church that was all gold. And I turned to the guy and I said, "Oh, this must be the gold that you stole from Puerto Rico." And he looked at me like, "Who is this woman?" But anyhow, I said it tongue in cheek. At any rate, most people saw me as a foreigner, not as a American citizen, that belongs to the United States. Uh, and so, I had to be my very best at everything that I did, at the way I dressed, the way I spoke, the way I behaved. I had to show them that this woman is Puerto Rican, but there are millions of Puerto Ricans like me in the island. You just see these 400 children and their parents working in the farms, and you are so wrong because you have no idea who we are. So that was a big challenge. And of course, people actually insulted me in their speech all the time. They would say, "Oh, well, I can't understand you because you have that accent." Or, "When are you going to become a citizen?" Or, "When are you going to drive to Puerto Rico?" I mean, the most horrendous things they would say to me. And letters that I received, hate letters, a Valentine with the heart cut out, and take your Puerto Ricans and go back where you belong. So, but you what, know what? My faith would never allow me to give up. And sometimes people look at me as a fighter and somebody that, you don't want to deal with because she's this, she's that, she's the other. But that's what I had, the persona that I had to become in order to survive and in order to educate and in order to be what was right and decent for these children who were our future, who are our future. So challenges, my goodness. Every place I go, I had to be subject to some kind of slur, some kind of whatever. Well, anyhow, going back to Reading, I said to the superintendent, these children need to learn English. And that was a foreign concept. Nobody knew anything about ESL, let alone bilingual education. This problem of bilingual education started in Canada because of the French and the Spanish. And so there were two gurus in Canada, uh, Cummings and Charming, and I bought their books and I devoured those books to learn how they deal with it. And so that's when I started my fight. And I said, you know what? You're trying to put a square, a round peg in a square hole. These children cannot be here unless we teach them English or while you teach them English. So guess what? I became the ESL teacher. And I used to go room to room picking up my little chickens for 45 minutes to teach them English. No materials, no room, in the boiler room, in the hallway, in back of the stage, in the bathroom, whatever there was a space that I could be with my little chicken to teach them English. I'm not a teacher. I don't know anything about ESL except my experience. So I went pick up these children, brought them with me, went and bought a briefcase, bought some materials, whatever I could do, learning from these books and so on. Brought the children with me, and guess what they wanted to do when they came with me? They wanted to speak Spanish because they've been incarcerated, and that's the word that I use, incarcerated in the classroom. And so when they saw me, "Oh, ay, señora, maestra, and I thought, oh dear God, I'm here to teach you English, not to speak Spanish. So I made a deal with them and I said, okay, the first 15 minutes you can tell me anything you want to. Because they were, boiling over with problems at home and whatever happened. And so the 15 minutes we spoke Spanish, the next 30 are mine and you're going to learn English. And so that's what we did. At the end of the year, I went up to the superintendent and I said, here's my resignation. And he said, well, you can do that. I said, yes, I can. You are trying to do something. I'm putting me in a position that I cannot succeed. That is not enough. Okay, model cities came in. gave some money to the Reading School District. They hire half a teacher and gave me half a teacher. Then that didn't work. It's you cannot. ESL is a band-aid to say we're doing something. ESL works beautifully with children that come from countries where they're fully educated like me. Why did I read so fast? Because I was totally educated in my language, and all I need is a dictionary, a little bit of intelligence, and hard work, and I'm going to learn English, and I'm going to learn subject matter, and so on. But if you have a third grade level or a first grade level education, and you come here and you're in fifth grade, how in the name of the Lord are you ever going to catch up? It's ridiculous. So, I had my battles with the board, with the people, with everybody, because even the Puerto Ricans were against me, saying that I was trying to ruin their children by putting them in ESL or whatever. So anyhow, after that, I said, no, I can do this. Well, we'll give you another teacher. Now we go to 2 hours, 3 times a day. This isn't working. This is not for these children. These children are not educated in their own language. So again, the Lord come to me. The school district of California uh, was sued by the Chinese people because they were not educating their children. Went all the way to the Supreme Court, which is the landmark court for bilingual education, and said they're not educating our children. Debated the case, and finally, a young Jewish lawyer came in to see what was going on, heard their comment, banged on the table, and said, enough of this. Education in a language that is not your own is not education and is not equal. End of the story. Office of Bilingual Education in Washington, Title VII, millions of dollars. School districts all over the United States receive letters. If you have 7 children whose dominant language is other than English, you can write a proposal. Guess what? I started writing proposal. I started bringing the money in the Reading School District, and I wrote the proposal not for ESL, but for a transitional bilingual program. Why transitional? Because that word gives the Anglo people the hope that those children are going to come out. If I would have said bilingual, they would have killed me. But I said a transitional bilingual program. So we did that, and we hired bilingual teacher aides, all Puerto Ricans with a high school diploma, or elementary teachers that could teach at that level, even for the high school. And so I created 54 bilingual classrooms in the Reading School District when I left. And those children were there learning 3.5 hours of English in the morning and math, social studies, and science, introducing the English vocabulary and the concepts so that they could go in the classroom and be at the level they were supposed to be. Believe me, I don't know. I can only say that God put all this in my head because we had in the bilingual classroom, they were not children sitting in a row. We had cooperative learning, we had individualized instruction, and we also had um, a self doing because we divided the hours in uh, 15-minute uh, blocks where the teacher taught, the teacher assistant reinforced, and the students worked together. So that was the bilingual program. During the time that all this is going on, and I'm going crazy, and my husband is saying, "Get out of there! You're going to have a heart attack. You're going to die. They're going to shoot you. Whatever." Uh, on a Saturday, there's a knock at the door, and there are 3 state policemen. And my husband said, "Look at me," and he said, "What did you do now, Raquel?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know who those people are." So we opened the door. "Come on in, sit down. We are here to investigate your wife." And what did I do now? And they said, well, no, 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 don't get excited. There is a commission called the Human Relations Commission in Pennsylvania, and somebody has recommended your wife to be a commissioner, and we need to do a background check on her. I said, okay. So they did the background check, they left. I went to the work the next day. I told the superintendent what had happened, and he said, do you realize what an honor that is? I said, I don't know. I'm not looking for honors. I'm just doing my job. Next thing I get a letter, you have been appointed to a commission. So I went to my first meeting and I was trembling when I entered that commission. There were all these older men. I wasn't that old then, by the way, 44 years ago. Uh, there were all these older men, all with their suits, and in front of them, they're tapped, attorney this, attorney that, this. And I said, what am I doing here? I was going to Temple at the time to get my doctorate. I was almost finished. I was writing my dissertation. I went, sat down, kept my mouth shut for almost a year. I wouldn't open my mouth because I didn't know what was going on. Reading and trying to find out what this is all about and listening. And of course, I missed quite a few meetings. And Joe Yaki was the chair. And he took me aside. And he said, young lady, I need to talk to you. Okay. He said, I see that you missed 3 meetings. You have a valid reason? I said, yes, I do. I am going for my doctorate. I'm writing my dissertation. And sometimes I have to go the day of the meeting to meet with my advisors or whatever. Uh, but I promise you, once I'm finished, I will be attending the meeting. And he shook my hand and he said, it's a deal. And so I finished my dissertation. I started to learn about the commission, and my attendance has been pretty darn good. And
Yes.
my
For
commitment,
those of, if I may,
go
for
ahead.
those that are on the line and aren't aware, our commissioners meet on a monthly basis. They meet once a month, every month. But was it the same back then?
Oh, yes.
Did you meet
Oh,
on a
yes.
monthly basis, just once
Oh,
a
yes.
month?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. We have to be there, and they send you the packet, and believe me, those packets sometimes were this big, and then we were going to hear cases, and in other words, I really had 2 jobs: my job with the district and my job with the commission that I took very very seriously. Uh, the appointment was, I think, for 3 years, and here I am, still at the commission. And I know that a lot of people might be hoping that this is probably my last year with the commission. And if so, it's all in the hands of the Lord. Whatever He wants me to do, that's what I will do. I must tell you that being in the commission has been also a blessing because I have learned so much, and I have been what humility and humbleness uh, is, what people all over the state are being injured, how some of us that are in a higher position, think it's okay to harm people, take advantage of others, and I I cannot imagine anybody tolerating that kind of behavior. Um, so I'm going to stop for a minute and see if you have any question, because I would like my last 10 minutes or 5 minutes to do something that probably doesn't have to do much with the commission or my life, but it has to do with our lives. Is there
And so
anybody that has
I
a
don't
question?
see any questions yet. Either no one has their hands raised. I don't see anything in the chat, but I did want to ask because I find it fascinating that you grew up in a household where your dad was very old-fashioned, if I may say, where women are seen, not heard. And then fast forward, you're given this opportunity to join the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission as a commissioner. And as you described, you're the only woman in a room full of men and you were trembling. At what age or at what moment in your life, in your experience, did you embrace your voice and you were unafraid and unashamed to speak
I,
up and speak
I,
against
Sulay, I
injustice?
think I did that the minute that I started to meet challenges. And it was either crawl up in a hole and disappear, stay in Puerto Rico and marry my Spanish guy, whoever he happened to be, and that would be a Puerto Rican submissive woman, or just be me. But at the same time that my father was so strict and so on, he always taught us, be yourself. One of the memorable things I remember about my father teaching was when we would come home and say something about somebody that wasn't nice, my father would sit you down and say, "Look, I want you to know something. You are not better than anybody, but nobody's better than you. Just remember that. You're not better than anyone, but nobody's better than you." Uh, and those things that, that my maternal grandfather, grandparents taught me. My mother, who was a, she was a teacher because she went, I guess, to eighth grade. In those days, you could be a teacher, and she used to teach the people in the neighborhood. Uh, and I guess I got the strength from my mother and father, and it was in me. And somehow it erupted when the Lord said, "It's time for you to do something, Raquel." So, because I don't know that I decided I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. It just kind of came to me. Just stop it. And, you know, uh, I've always been told, tell the truth, no matter what. And sometimes the truth hurts. And I always say to all my friends, don't ask me anything if you don't want to hear my answer, because my answer might not be what you want to hear. And I know at the commission sometimes I open my mouth and say things that are not popular, that people don't like, but this voice inside of me say, Raquel, you've got to say that. Raquel, you have to say it. Raquel, you have to uh, make that comment or whatever. And the one thing is that I never did things to be popular. And I know I might not be the most popular person. And uh, sometimes it hurts, but if it's doing the right thing, it doesn't matter to me. If I'm doing the right thing, that's all that I care. How it affects me or how it makes people feel about me, you know, it's this Puerto Rican woman who thinks she knows everything. This Puerto Rican woman who can keep her mouth shut. This Puerto Rican woman, whatever, whatever. And Chad knows that. And Chad has been a godsend for our commission. I thank God every day for Chad because he has taken these commission places, excuse me, that I never thought this commission would go. We have locked horns a couple of times, uh, but we always respect each other, I hope, and we always believe in each other, and we have the same uh, type of commitment to humanity and to truth and to faith and to hope. So this is me.
Yes, and I think you picked that up from your mother. You shared with us that she was loved by everyone because she was humble, she was genuine, and she was given. And in the amount of time that I've been with the commission, I have witnessed that firsthand from you. So we are getting closer, just a little bit over that 10-minute mark that you wanted to
Okay.
share, but I definitely want to open it up to anyone else who is on this call with us to ask any questions you have for our commissioner. Director Garcia, please.
Buenos días, doctora Yiengst, Raquel. Buenos días, Zulay. Good morning to all. Not really a question, more of a comment. I knew of Dr. Yiengst before coming here through my community contacts, and there's one thing that people always said, and she knows it. We've talked about it. Dr. Yiengst is you are either liked by Dr. Yiengst or you are not liked by Dr. Yiengst, but the same is the reverse. People either like Dr. Yiengst or they don't, because she's always been this independent voice that is led by her principles and by that morality, without judgment. And that's what I've learned about her. And I just want to say that I admire you very much. I've always respected your work. You are a legend in the Latino community, and we appreciate you still being in this social justice fight. And thank you so much for all of our conversations that we've had.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're right. They either like me or they don't, and I either like them or they don't. Makes no difference. We can
Yep.
still be human. We can still work together. We can still follow whatever it is that we need to do. You
Yeah,
know.
we have that in common.
Well, it's either a blessing or a curse. I don't know which one it is.
It's all about perspective.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I
You know,
count it a
when I did
blessing.
public speaking, I always said either I am such a great speaker that I left you without any question, or you were not interested. Whichever one you want to take.
I think they're speechless, Dr. Yanks. I think you've left them speechless, but thank you. I'll
Well,
say it's
I
been
want to take my
marvelous to hear your journey, but I will leave the floor to you the last 10 minutes.
yes. What I'm going to do, and please forgive me for indulging this, but I thought about speaking to you, and I thought about cultural differences. And one of the cultural differences that bothers me a lot is, in Puerto Rico, our thought is that people got old taking care of us, and it is our turn to take care of them. They tried Home for the Aging in Puerto Rico at my time, and they failed because to us it's a disgrace to put one of our loved ones in a home for the aged. It's like throwing them away. Here in the United States, they can't get enough home for older people because the minute you get old, you can be discarded. And that is one of the things that bother me. Also, people look at you and, oh, that old lady, what does she know? She doesn't know anything. Discarding completely the years of experience and knowledge that you have accumulated. And so they could care less about you. No, she's too old. She can be doing that. No, she's too old. Or uh, she has dementia, or she doesn't know what she's talking about, or he's talking about in generality. And that's one thing that really bothers me because I think, oh my goodness. And I experienced that with my own great grandson. My old great grandson is sad to say something. I said, no, 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 that's not the way it is. Today, this is the way it is. And I think, oh dear me, you're going the wrong route. And so, because of that, uh, this is something that's very dear and close to me, elderly people and how our society treats them. And so, my husband just wrote a poetry book. It was published. It's called Something Nothing. The reason that I have this book with me is because I would like to read you a poem from this book that I read it over and over and over again because it is so true to today's problem. So I cannot read poetry the way he does, but I am certainly going to try to do justice to this poem.
What a treat. Thank you so much, Dr. Yanks.
Took him 55 years to publish it, and he did not want to publish it. It was my insistent Puerto Rican woman that made him do it. The title of the poem is Lodger. like houses bowed in aging rows, with weather walls that decompose. I watch the summer in your eyes, disdain this face without disguise. I sympathize as you resent the hardest not of my intent that marks this mouth and sets this jaw with statues from survivor's law. The beauty that was yesterday betrayed itself to live today, with hairless head, with bulbous nose, with swollen eyes and watered clothes. You will not grant me amnesty, for at a glance you only see the tenement where I reside. I keep another house inside.
Beautiful. Can you give us the title once more of the book? Someone in the
So
chat is asking.
something knocking, and it is because that's how the book came about. We would be running, and he would say, Raquel, stop, I have a line. And he would have a line and would write it in a little book, and then that would be the poem. He did not set to do this, it just happened. And and I'm not advertising the book, I just thought that that poem says it all. How people treat our elderly. I have another house inside. What you see
Mm-hmm.
is not what you get. Okay? Any
Mm-hmm.
questions?
Thank you. So there's one in the chat that says, what advice do you have for the new generation of Latinos coming to the United States?
Well, first of all, I say that the Latinos coming to the United States now have a lot more opportunities than we ever had because you know what millions of Latinos that are in the United States, and I think some things have changed in terms of knowing you know that there's different um, classes of Latinos and how to treat the different Latinos. I hope, but what I would always say to you is be yourself. Be yourself. Do not try to camouflage who you are. You know, uh, I don't think if you are fake, you don't get anywhere. Be who you are, and always know that the Lord has given you all the tools that you need to manage the life that He's going to give you. Use every tool that you have to the utmost. Uh, have hope, have religion, have compassion, have humanity, and treat people like you would like them to treat you, no matter what they are, whether it's somebody begging in the street for money or whether it is the President of the United States, it doesn't matter. Treat always people with kindness and respect. That doesn't mean that you can silence your voice. Never silence your voice. Never silence your voice. Say what you have to say. You don't have to insult people. Sometimes you can say with a smile, and sometimes you can say with words that might not offend, but be true to yourself and never be ashamed of what you are. Never be ashamed of what you are. We are all
Thank
beautiful
you.
people that God has created.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your afternoon. And please continue to follow us on social media so you can catch our next Lunch and Learn. Also, ED Lassiter, you had any closing
No,
words for us?
no, I was just going to say, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you for being present and being in this space. And may you continue to have a superb week, Dr. Yanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you all of you that endured this hour with me. As I said, it's so off the cuff, and I hope that I said some things that resonate with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yiengst. And thank you for all you do for Centro Hispano as well.
Who is that?
This is Rick Olmos.
Oh, hi, Rick. Hi, Rick.
Hi.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that you were able to join us.
Most definitely. I couldn't miss it.
Okay, take care.